The grand chamber aboard the Imperial dreadnought Resplendent Judgment glittered with cold, oppressive beauty. Pillars of obsidian spiraled into a ceiling of starlight projection, while an artificial gravity well pulsed beneath the throne of the Emperor, casting long shadows over the council of admirals, ministers, and battle-augurs. Supreme Emperor Varnix the Unyielding sat draped in bio-forged armor, his eyes lit with contempt and curiosity. The hologram shimmered to life at the center of the chamber. A blue-green sphere rotated lazily, Earth, tagged and labeled in the Empire's archaic glyphs. "This," hissed Admiral Kurlvesk, "is the planet that dared deny Imperial jurisdiction. Primitive, noisy, filled with carbon breathers who dance and sing at inappropriate times." Varnix said nothing. His silence was a blade. The chamber held its breath. Kurlvesk continued, emboldened. "They refused our tribute demand, offered us what they called churros and sassy attitude instead." Minister Lihar, her neck frills twitching, added, "The offering was delivered with a smile. A hostile smile. I believe it was a challenge." "A challenge?" Varnix asked, finally speaking, his voice soft and terrible. "Yes, your indomitability. 1. Human sent it. Name, Maria Hernandez. No military rank, no official power. Civilian." There was a pause. Then laughter, dry, echoing, deeply amused. The Emperor leaned forward. "You're telling me a single unranked human has rejected our decree, and we are taking this personally?" Minister Lihar nodded stiffly. She included a handwritten note, Emperor. It reads, "Thank you for the visit. My tamales are better than your threats. Come by for lunch before you invade. Love, Maria." There was another pause. This one lacked laughter. 7 hours, the Emperor finally said. "Send them notice. They have 7 hours to prepare. I will arrive myself." Back on Earth, in a small stucco house tucked away in a quiet neighborhood of Albuquerque, Maria Hernandez looked up from her tomato plants. Her gardening gloves were stained with soil, her sun hat slightly crooked. A low humming filled the air as a sleek obsidian-skinned drone hovered into her backyard. It chirped in a guttural language that sounded like someone gargling a dishwasher. Maria gave it a long, appraising look. "Oh, you must be from the Empire. Bienvenidos. Want a cold drink?" The drone paused, rotated its sensor array, and tried again. "Planet 3621 is under Imperial judgment. You have 7 hours until eradication. Submit and prepare for interrogation." Maria smiled gently. "Well, that's not very neighborly." She stood up, brushed off her knees and walked inside. The drone hovered for a moment, confused, before following her through the screen door, which she didn't bother to hold open. The living room was cozy, full of books, plants and framed family photos. On the wall hung a cracked diploma, and a small medal in a shadow box labeled, "For services not discussed." Maria poured herself iced tea. The drone floated uncomfortably above her cat, which glared with disdain. "I don't suppose your Emperor enjoys tamales?" she asked. "No dietary data for tamales. Please submit to authority." Maria leaned against the counter, sipping. "You're cute when you try to be menacing." The drone's sensors blinked. Non-compliance logged. Final warning. "Oh honey. That was my compliance." The drone tilted slightly, confused. Maria handed it a basket wrapped in cloth, warm, aromatic. "For His Imminent Majesty. Homemade. My abuelita's recipe." And a little note. The drone scanned it for explosives, pathogens, malware. Nothing. It recorded a 99.9% non-threatening grandmother energy rating, and took off into the sky. Maria watched it vanish, then opened a drawer and pulled out a very old, very well-used satellite phone. She pressed a single button. A mechanical voice answered. "Line secure. What's the situation?" "Empire gave us 7 hours." A pause. "Understood. Asset activation?" "Not yet. Just wanted to give you a heads up. Might get spicy." "Define spicy." "They're sending the Emperor." Silence. Then, Copy that. Maria ended the call and returned to her garden, humming. At the edge of the solar system, the resplendent judgment hung like a vulture over the sun. The emperor received the gift basket in full ceremony. His war priests scanned it with probes that burned blue and gold. It's food, one said, baffled. Delicious-smelling food. The emperor took a tamale, unwrapped it clumsily, and bit in. 2 minutes later, he was coughing violently, purple ichor pouring from his mouth. What is that? He demanded, wheezing. Capsaicin, we believe, a medical attendant stammered. From a plant. It causes extreme burning sensations in all known digestive systems. She poisoned me? No, sire. We ran all scans. It's just spicy. The emperor's eyes burned. His pride burned hotter. I will deal with this Maria Hernandez personally. The word personally traveled like thunder across the fleet. On Earth, governments were in a state of frantic, international tea-sipping panic. Diplomats from every continent tried to decipher who Maria Hernandez was and why the empire was singling her out. CIA analysts knew only fragments. A former logistics officer, tied to special operations, vanished from government records 5 years ago. Known aliases: Tia Maria, La Bruja, and in intercepted alien transmissions, Baba Yaga. Most agreed it had to be a different Maria. She was, after all, currently in the middle of baking a cake for her niece's quinceanera. She's watering plants, a NORAD agent said in disbelief, watching satellite footage. She's knitting, added a Mossad observer. Are those homemade landmines? Said the Chinese liaison. Unconfirmed, said MI6. But she did buy an unusual amount of pressure cookers last year. They debated. They theorized. They panicked. Maria made tea. Meanwhile, aboard the flagship, Varnix prepared. His honor guard donned armor woven from the hides of void serpents. Ships aligned. Weapons primed. But whispers began to ripple through the crew. Not of war, but of her. She killed a Zarkathi warlord with a soup ladle. Engineered a rebellion using only a spreadsheet and a karaoke night. Convinced a star horde to implode out of guilt. The stories spread like rot. None had proof. None were identical. But all ended the same way. She smiled. And then everything burned. She's just a human, the emperor snarled, eyes still watering from the tamale. What is she going to do? Bake us into submission? No one laughed. Maria sat in her living room, watching reruns of Jeopardy! With one hand petting the cat and the other holding a half-eaten conchus. Her phone buzzed. Unknown caller. Galactic code prefix. She answered politely. Hola. A voice like static and crushed gravel answered. This is the Supreme Emperor of the Ninth Empire of Silence. You are Maria Hernandez. Yes, I am. You must be Varnix. There was a pause. No one ever used his name without a title. I will arrive at your world within 6 hours. You will kneel. You will beg. Maria sounded cheerful. That's a long flight. Hope you brought snacks. You will be obliterated. I've been threatened before. My HOA once tried to fine me for painting my door red. They don't exist anymore. A flicker of doubt crept into the emperor's voice. You mock me. I find mocking keeps the fear away, Maria said kindly. Also, you're very dramatic. You know that, right? All the shouting. It's cute. There was silence. Then the emperor cut the connection. Maria hung up inside. Her cat meowed. I know, baby. They never listen. At the United Nations, chaos reigned. Delegates screamed in a dozen languages. Earth had 7 hours before a galactic empire descended on one woman. Should we evacuate her? We tried. Her front porch exploded. What's she planning? Unknown. She's baking again. The 7-hour countdown ticked. The world held its breath. Maria went to the kitchen and sharpened her garden shears with calm, deliberate movements. She glanced at the clock. Time to make dinner. The first section ends not with a bang, but a bubbling pot, a humming human, and a galactic death fleet heading toward a planet it vastly underestimated. The only thing standing between Earth and oblivion? A woman in slippers. And her smile. The second the Emperor ended the call, Maria put her phone down with a soft sigh, as if she'd just received news her cousin would be late to a barbecue. She reached for a notepad titled, TODO, World Domination or Laundry, and checked off 2 items. Receive ultimatum and mock emperor. 6 hours and 52 minutes remained. She walked into her small garage, flipping on the light with her elbow as she passed under a string of chili pepper-shaped bulbs. A garden gnome with sunglasses stood sentry by the far wall. She gave it a pat on the head before pulling down a storage bin marked Christmas/Crisis Supplies. Inside were ornaments, a half-burned menorah, and, nested between garland and bubble wrap, an old metal case. Maria unlatched it, revealing a custom toolkit designed for everything from reprogramming hostile alien AIs to opening stubborn salsa jars. As she pulled out a circuit board lined with human and alien interface ports, a voice echoed through her earpiece. "Your line's still open," it said. "I know," she replied, crouching to plug the board into her toaster. "I'd ask if you're sure about this," the voice said. "But you've already weaponized a kitchen appliance." "I haven't even started," she said. "Prep the uplinks. Time for a little misinformation fiesta." Back aboard the resplendent Judgment, Admiral Kurlvesk stood before a cluster of projection screens, each one showing a live feed from orbiting drones. Maria's house appeared perfectly mundane. Too mundane. "She's knitting," one technician noted, frowning. "Rewind. Zoom in." The feed stuttered, then focused. "Yes, that's definitely yarn," said the second technician. "I'm not sure why it's so concerning." Kurlvesk narrowed his eyes. "Because she is still knitting. In the face of annihilation." The analysts murmured. "She's either a complete fool or she's preparing something none of us can see," Kurlvesk finished grimly. Their concern was not unfounded. At hour 1, Maria launched her first distraction. Using the reprogrammed Empire drone, which she'd now named Carl, she hacked into one of the lesser-known Imperial propaganda channels and replaced the usual Galactic hymn with a broadcast of How to Survive Invasions the Maria Way. The video opened with her standing in her backyard. "Step 1, she said, smiling sweetly. "Don't panic. Panic is for invaders." She waved a spatula like a conductor's baton. "Step 2, cook something delicious. Nothing sows chaos like good food at the wrong time." The Empire's attempt to shut down the broadcast failed. Their own servers accepted the intrusion as a scheduled message from a high-level protocol, something she'd buried in their software months ago, during what they'd thought was a friendly Earth-wide survey. She stirred a pot on screen. "Step 3, always know more than they think you know. Especially about their mothers." Back on the ship, the officers stared at the broadcast in horror as their Emperor, still wheezing faintly from residual capsaicin, watched in silence. "This is psychological warfare," whispered a communications priest. "It's a cooking show," someone objected. "No," said the Emperor. "It's both." Meanwhile, Maria hummed while baking mallets. Hour 2 rolled around. The Empire dispatched another drone, this time disguised as a crow. It landed on her windowsill and tried to peer in. Maria fed it breadcrumbs laced with nanobots. The crow chirped once, then began broadcasting its location not back to the Empire, but to every dissident faction within the Imperial fringe. Suddenly, the location of the resplendent Judgment was no longer a secret. By hour 3, several minor insurgent groups across the galaxy launched surprise uprisings. Reports flooded in. Resource planets were slipping out of control. Pirate clans started repositioning themselves suspiciously close to Imperial shipping lanes. "She's not fighting us," muttered Minister Lihar, watching the live data. "She's ungluing us." The Emperor barked. Silence. "She's provoking minor annoyances." But behind the words, his jaw twitched. Earth's official leadership, still mostly in the dark, tried to reach Maria. "She won't answer," the President of the United States said, pacing the Oval Office. "She sent me a pie." "Does the pie mean anything?" It's really good pie. She's jamming our sat feeds with jazz, the Pentagon reported. Jazz? Miles Davis. Interspaced with coded instructions for reorganizing civil defense units and resistance cells. The president blinked. So she's preparing Earth for war, with jazz and baked goods? Someone whispered reverently, "She's incredible." At hour 4, Maria turned her attention to public perception. Using Carl and several other drones she'd gently re-educated, she began broadcasting testimonials of how Maria helped me not die. The interviews ranged from a desert mercenary on Kither 9 to a deposed prince who tearfully confessed that she once sent him a handwritten letter advising him to grow up and stop wearing so much velvet. By the time the hour was up, hashtags like #BabaYagaNose trended across 12 major star systems. On the Empire's war deck, dissent brewed. Officers exchanged side-eyes. Midshipmen whispered rumors. One of the kitchen crew had started praying to a wooden spoon. The Emperor crushed a glass goblet in his hand. Send the fleet into final position. As hour 5 began, Earth's orbit lit with motion. The Empire's warships emerged in neat formations, beautiful in a terrifying way. Columns of star-forged steel and plasma-reactive plating hovered like judgment itself. Maria sat on her porch with a plate of conchas and a pair of opera glasses. Oh, now they're just showing off. Her neighbor, Mr. Thompson, walked by with his dog. You gonna do something about all that? She offered him a cookie. I'm thinking about it. You need anything? Just a bit more time. Back inside, she activated the final part of her plan. A small dish on her kitchen counter pulsed softly. Carl, sitting in her fruit bowl, began chirping a coded sequence. Across orbit, one of the Empire's command frigates received a system update. Normally, that wouldn't mean much. Except this particular update had come from a protocol the Empire forgot existed. And Maria hadn't. Within minutes, the ship began broadcasting fake priority orders. Conflicting commands echoed through their ranks. Half the fleet adjusted formation. The other half thought they were under internal rebellion. Imperial control systems spasmed. Fighters launched prematurely. Supply cruisers rerouted. In chaos, they began to shoot at each other. Only one ship held its position, the Resplendent Judgment. In hour 6, Maria opened a secure channel. The Emperor's face appeared, flushed with fury. You dare mock my fleet? I wouldn't say mock, she said pleasantly. More like, gently correct. Like a librarian with a cattle prod. End this. Gladly. Come down. Tea's almost ready. The Emperor stared, blinking. You think you can trap me on your pathetic mudball? I think you've already trapped yourself. I just added sugar. For the first time, something faltered behind his eyes. She leaned in. Look behind you. He turned. On his command deck, several officers had drawn sidearms. They weren't pointed at her. The Emperor ended the feed. Back on Earth, Maria stood in her backyard and looked up. The Resplendent Judgment began its descent, slow and deliberate. It passed over cities, over oceans, a god descending. She placed a hand on the old pecan tree in her yard and whispered something into its bark. The tree responded by releasing a subtle pulse, harmless, unless you were tuned into certain frequencies. Frequencies Maria had embedded in Imperial armor design years ago, back when she consulted. The effect? Several guards aboard the Emperor's vessel experienced sudden, intense nausea, dizziness, and a deep craving for peanut butter. It would not be a focused landing. Hour 7 ticked into its final stretch. The Emperor, wild-eyed and furious, descended in a personal pod, flanked by what remained of his elite guard. He landed in Maria's driveway. The pod's doors hissed open. Steam rose. The Emperor strode forward, sword at his side, armored cloak shimmering with heat shields. Maria met him with a smile and a tray. Tamale? She asked. He slapped the tray aside. That's rude, she said calmly. You have ruined my fleet. No, darling. Your pride did that. I just set the table. His voice cracked like thunder. Do you know what I am? Maria nodded. A boy who wasn't hugged enough. He reached for his sword. She didn't flinch. Behind her, the neighborhood gathered. Men in flannel shirts, women with curlers in their hair, teenagers filming on smartphones. None interfered. All silent. The emperor hesitated. For the first time, he saw the power not in her hand, but in her calm. Maria held a small, glowing cube between two fingers. "One word," she said gently, "and every rebellious faction from here to the Thraxian Rim receives live access to your very creative personal spending reports." He blinked. Maria added, "Also, your poetry journal. The one about moons and your father." He gasped. "You spied on me?" "No," she said. "You posted it on a galactic forum under the name Sword_93. A strangled cry escaped his throat. His guard stepped back. Maria turned to go inside. "I've made tea. You can kill me after we chat if you're still angry." He followed, dazed. The door closed behind them. For 7 minutes, no one spoke. Not the guards, not the neighbors, not the command staff in orbit. The entire galaxy seemed to hold its breath. Then the door opened again. Maria stepped out, brushing crumbs from her hands. "Someone take out the trash," she called. "He got blood on my rug." 2 guards ran in. They came out pale, trembling, carrying the Emperor's sword, now snapped in half. He never emerged. Earth's sky cleared. The Empire's fleet, leaderless and disoriented, began to scatter. The battle that should have ended a species ended instead with silence, shame, and a very strong tamale recipe. Maria watered her plants. Then she sat down, picked up her knitting, and added 2 new rows. One in red, for fury. One in gold, for victory. The clock struck 0. And the world kept turning. The Emperor's boots clanged against the floorboards with regal spite, a sound meant to intimidate. Maria didn't acknowledge it. She stirred honey into a cup of chamomile tea, the clink of her spoon calm, decisive, and wholly unimpressed. He loomed over her kitchen table like a storm threatening fine china. His armor hissed softly with each movement, living metal breathing through vents that pulsed with alien energy. The blade at his side vibrated with microfusion. It wanted blood. He wanted hers. She placed his cup down gently. "Sugar's already in. You strike me as the kind of man who pretends not to like it, but does." He stared, eyes burning with barely contained rage. "You are not afraid." She met his gaze. "You're not very observant." A flicker of something crossed his face. Uncertainty, perhaps. He sat, but with the coiled posture of a predator expecting a trap. Maria sat across from him, cardigan neatly buttoned, hair pinned back in that just-so way grandmothers did when preparing for war or church. She sipped her tea. "We can do this 2 ways," she said. "We can talk like civilized people. Or you can try to kill me, and discover what I've done to your ship's air filtration system." His jaw tightened. "You poisoned it?" "Worse. I made it smell like burned popcorn every 4 hours. Forever." His hand twitched. The blade sang softly. But he didn't draw it. "You are an insect," he said coldly. "A creature of dirt and sentiment. And yet, here I am, seated like an equal with a planetary footnote." "Not a footnote," she said with a smile. "An asterisk. Always worth checking." He leaned forward, voice dropping into the guttural tones of an ancient dialect. "I have crushed solar rebellions. Executed the last monarch of the trinary thrones. My breath alone has ended negotiations." Maria tilted her head. "You sound like a very lonely man." His fingers flexed. Her words slid through his armor better than any blade. "I gave you 7 hours out of mercy," he said. "I used 5 to knit," she replied. "That's how dangerous you are." Silence fell between them, thick and charged. He reached into his belt and withdrew a small cube. It hovered above the table, projecting real-time data. The galaxy was unraveling. Imperial command sectors were dissolving. Battle groups splintered. Factions within the Empire now declared neutrality, or worse, allegiance to Earth. His war machine had become a kaleidoscope of panic. You orchestrated this, he whispered. No, she said. You built something that collapsed at the first wind. I just opened a window. His eyes scanned the data, darting like prey in a storm. My generals have locked you out. Your flagship's command codes were rewritten an hour ago. A few of your own admirals helped. They were tired of waiting for you to die. He looked up, mask cracking. You made me look weak. No, she said. You did. I just let the cameras roll. The cube flickered. His heart rate spiked. Maria tapped a finger against her teacup. Tell me something, she said softly. Do you remember Sector 19B? Little mining moon called Veltra. He blinked. I was there, she continued. The rebellion you thought you crushed? We were behind that. I taught them how to fake loyalty until the day they buried your envoy under a collapse they engineered over 15 years. His mouth opened, but no words came. I've seen your methods. I've seen the children you took. The libraries you burned. The way your people cry when your name is spoken. I am a god to them, he croaked. No, she said, standing. You're a fear-shaped habit. He rose with her, taller by nearly a foot, glowing with all the menace the Empire could afford. The blade came free in a single, fluid motion, humming with latent death. Maria didn't flinch. You've calculated everything, he hissed. Except for the moment I end you. Incorrect. Then she moved. Not like a warrior. Not like an assassin. Like someone who'd already won. She threw the tea in his face. The scalding liquid sizzled against his augmented skin. He reeled, blade slashing blind, cutting through the table, the teacups, the air. But Maria was already past him. She grabbed a cast-iron skillet from the stove, and slammed it into the back of his knee. The armor absorbed most of it, but the joint shuddered. He dropped half a step. She didn't press. She stepped away. He turned, roaring, swinging the sword again. It carved a deep scar across the wall, slicing through brick and sentiment. 7 minutes, she said, breath even. You've got 4 left. You think I'll fall in 4 minutes? He spat. No, she said. You'll fall in 3. I'm giving you a minute to think about it. He lunged. She sidestepped, ducked, twisted. He was stronger, faster, immortal by artificial means. She had knees that clicked when she gardened too long. But she also had years of training, of studying monsters like him. And she had a shoe. She whipped it from her foot in one practiced arc and hurled it. It hit him between the eyes. Not hard. But it was the timing. The insult. The memory of mothers everywhere using that same motion to end petty tyranny. He stumbled. The moment cracked. She stepped in. Her garden shears, honed to a molecular edge, slipped through the weak spot just below his collarbone. His eyes widened. He staggered back. I had a mentor once, she said quietly, who told me, never let power speak uninterrupted. So I didn't. He dropped to one knee. Blood, blue, iridescent, full of engineered nanocytes, spilled onto her floor. Her cat watched from the counter, tail flicking, disapproving. You could have done so much good, she murmured, crouching beside him. But you needed people afraid, not better. His breathing turned ragged. They'll never follow you. I don't want followers, she said. I want them to stop needing leaders like you. His hand gripped the blade's hilt. She placed her hand gently over his. Shoo. You've done enough. The last of his strength gave way. He slumped forward. Maria caught him, laid him gently on the floor. 7 minutes, on the dot. She stood. Outside, the guards waited. They stiffened as the door opened, but no weapons were drawn. She walked out slowly, not a victor, not a conqueror. Just a woman who had cleaned her kitchen. She held the Emperor's sword, now cracked near the hilt. She placed it on the porch. It's over, she said. No one argued. In orbit, the Empire's remaining ships received a single transmission. It wasn't encrypted. It didn't need to be. It simply read, "The Emperor is dead." His last words were silence. Do better. Ships powered down weapons. Dozens of commanders quietly disconnected from the command net. Some defected instantly. Others broadcast acknowledgments, not of surrender, but of awakening. On Earth, in 100 countries, people watched the feed from Maria's hacked broadcast network. They saw her step back into her home and close the door behind her. The war was over before it began. In her kitchen, Maria knelt and cleaned the blood off her tile with vinegar and quiet patience. She hummed an old ranchera her mother used to sing when storms passed through. The cat purred. Outside, the world breathed again. And Maria brewed a new pot of tea. 3 days after the fall of the empire, a breeze moved through Maria Hernandez's garden like it had a secret to share. The pecan tree swayed gently, dropping a single shell into the birdbath. The cat watched it float, unimpressed. Maria stood in her front yard, pruning roses with the same care she used to dismantle governments. Her pink sun hat had a new burn mark, souvenir from a plasma burst during the Emperor's final lunge. She'd patched the hole with glitter glue. In orbit, the last of the Imperial fleet departed, not in retreat but in quiet, uneasy reverence. There had been no formal surrender. No ceremony. Only silence and a message left on every terminal. Humanity will not kneel. Across the galaxy, the aftermath rippled like a shattering mirror. Newsfeeds spun like stunned insects. Single Earthwoman defeats Galactic tyrant with tea and tactical insults. In diplomatic circles, the phrase "pulling a Maria" entered common usage, denoting a maneuver of disarming charm followed by calculated ruin. Political theorists on academic moons began rewriting entire textbooks with a new appendix, the human factor. But Earth itself remained uncertain. Maria had never claimed leadership. Never made demands. She didn't answer media calls. She didn't stand on podiums or pose for statues. She went back to her life, more or less. There was still gardening, knitting, and threatening the occasional HOA inspector who dared question her solar panel setup. But the world now tiptoed around her name like it was sacred ground. In a small UN meeting, someone nervously asked if they should consider giving her an official title. Something to mark her role in saving the planet. "She'd hate that," said the president of Costa Rica, sipping coffee. "She didn't fight to be worshipped. She fought because she was tired of bullies." A few chairs down, someone asked, "Then how do we stop other empires from trying again?" There was silence until a voice answered from a remote screen. It was Admiral Kesh, a former high-ranking officer in the now-defunct empire. "You don't," she said plainly. "But if they do, you give them her address." The call ended without elaboration. On Zarn Prime, in a cantina carved from volcanic glass, a mercenary named Thok of the Black Claw ordered a drink he couldn't pronounce and stared at a wanted poster on the wall. It had been hastily modified. The wanted, dead or alive tag had been replaced with "Visit at own risk, may offer cookies." Next to it was a poorly drawn sketch of Maria holding a frying pan. The bartender laughed. "You thinking of going to Earth?" Thok shuddered. "I like my insides inside." In the outer reaches, scattered warlords received encrypted messages from anonymous sources. All of them contained the same line, written in dozens of languages. "You will not see her coming. You will only know her by the ruins you wake up in." Among the empresses of the broken Eastern Spiral, debate raged. One argued Maria had used telepathy. Another insisted it had been Earth's secret weapon, some AI-enhanced tactical system. But the oldest among them shook her many heads and simply said, "No. She used understanding." Back on Earth, Maria's niece Sophia finally visited. She was 17, sharp-eyed, and perpetually unimpressed. She stood in the doorway holding a duffel bag. "You really killed an emperor?" Maria smiled. "Technically, he tripped into my shears." Repeatedly. "Aha." They sat at the kitchen table, drinking horchata. Sophia looked around. "This place doesn't look like the command center of a planetary defense strategist." "That's the point. You could have been rich." Maria gestured to a half-finished jigsaw puzzle. "This is better." Sophia watched her for a moment. "So what now?" "Now we stay ready. Just in case." "Can I train?" Maria paused, then nodded. Start by doing the dishes. Mindfulness begins with the mundane. Sophia groaned but obeyed. Somewhere between the suds and the rinsing, Maria handed her a folded note. On it were coordinates. And a single sentence. Only use these if the stars start whispering again. She never explained what that meant. In galactic diplomatic circles, Earth's status was complicated. Technologically, they were still behind. But politically? Strategically? Culturally? Terrifying. Ambassadors now spoke to human representatives with extraordinary politeness. The jokes were gone. The smirks replaced with quiet smiles and eye contact. Earth's admission into the Galactic Council, previously a joke, was now fast-tracked. No one wanted to be the species that underestimated humans twice. Especially not after the incident with the jellyfish dignitaries, who tried to test human boundaries by secretly embedding a bio-listener into Earth's water supply. The listener dissolved within 3 hours, overwhelmed by something called hot sauce residue. Maria never said whether that was her doing. But she did send the jellyfish delegation a gift basket of bottled salsas, labeled mild, medium, and diplomacy ender. The third one glowed. She signed the card with a heart. Time passed. Not much, but enough for myths to begin forming. Kids on alien worlds whispered stories about the Earth Witch, who baked cookies that made you tell the truth. Pirate radio stations played mariachi covers of her speech to the Emperor, which she never actually gave, but somehow existed in several versions. One had her shouting, "You messed with the wrong abuelita," before decapitating him with a sandal. Maria found that one amusing. But stories had power. They grew, evolved, exaggerated. She let them. Because the truth was quieter. She had no army. No grand technology. Just an understanding of fear, pride, and how people, no matter what planet they were from, folded under the weight of their own illusions. That, and she really did make excellent tamales. Still, there were those who wanted revenge. Remnants of the Empire, fragmented military sects, fanatics who viewed the Emperor as a martyr. They whispered of assassins, secret missions, interstellar vendettas. And once, just once, someone tried. It was a quiet night. The sky was clear. Maria was clipping basil when the assassin materialized behind her. A shimmer, barely visible. Silent as breath. But Maria turned before the blade reached her. "I left a pot of stew on," she said. The assassin blinked. "I'd hate to kill you before dinner," she added. The figure hesitated, confused by the lack of fear. She offered him a seat. They ate in silence. By the end of the meal, the assassin had asked for the recipe, and Maria had handed him a list of recommended therapy services on his home planet. He never returned. Eventually, Earth changed. Slowly, subtly. Not with lasers or new cities, but with mindset. Humans learned to walk taller. Not arrogant, but aware. Aware that the universe was far larger than they'd thought, and far more afraid of them than they'd ever guessed. And they didn't gloat. That was the most unnerving part. They went back to their daily lives. Music. Art. Arguments over coffee shop playlists. But now, every nation on Earth carried a quiet confidence that made other worlds hesitate. Humanity had been underestimated. Now it was respected. And feared. Maria, meanwhile, took to beekeeping. She said it helped her think. She built hives that hummed with unusual geometry, frequencies tuned to natural and unnatural harmonics. The bees didn't sting. They sang. She spoke to them sometimes. They never argued. Then one night, long after the galaxy had adjusted to its new equilibrium, a signal came. It wasn't loud. It didn't declare itself. It was just a whisper. A data fragment woven into the interstellar drift. She was sitting on the porch when she caught it, picked it apart while sipping lemonade. The message was simple. "We saw what you did. We're coming." Maria exhaled slowly, set her glass down and stood. She walked inside, turned on the porch light, and began boiling water. Not for defense. For tea. She didn't know who they were. But the fact they whispered instead of roared? That meant they were cautious. Curious. Not yet arrogant. Which meant they could be reasoned with. Or broken. She reached into the cabinet and pulled out a folder labeled Visitors. Inside were contingency plans, gifts, threat matrices, a list of questions, and at the very bottom, written in looping cursive, if they're polite, start with pan dulce. If not, use the microwave. Outside, the stars shifted. Maria smiled. She'd been waiting. And the galaxy had not yet learned. The second invitation was always deadlier than the first.